2nd edition. Quality of service. Let's suppose we have a port that gets pretty busy and multiple devices may transmit to it at the same time. So what happens then? Well, normally packets will queue up for delivery on a first-come, first-served basis. The operative word is normally. We can prioritize some traffic over others using quality of service, or QoS. QoS works a bit like priority boarding lines at the airport. As passengers come up, they can be sent to different queues for first-class passengers, frequent flyers, and others who are just flying economy. When the switch prepares to deliver packets, it will take from the highest priority queue first so that they hardly wait at all. If more packets come into this queue while it's processing, then the new packets will be sorted to their highest priority queues as well. And again, we will continue serving the highest priority queue first. Dante traffic will be tagged with 3 priorities. The highest priority is clocking data to make sure that we get stable, predictable delivery times for clock. Dante devices check their sync about 4 times per second, so this is a relatively low amount of data. Next comes the media packets, audio and video streams. The media packets will be the majority of our traffic, but as long as they arrive before their playout time, we're going to be fine. Beyond that is control data. That'll be commands for making and breaking subscriptions, changing names, that sort of thing. And of course, the final category is for everything else. We typically call this the best effort category. If your email comes in a few milliseconds later, you're not going to notice, right? So, notice that Dante will use 3 queues, but the switch should have a 4th queue for the best effort category. Many switches today will have as many as 8 queues. QoS priorities are set at the switch. Dante packets will be tagged with a DSCP value, and the switch can take an action based on that. Now it's easy to look at this and think the higher the DSCP value, the higher the priority. But that's not the case. Dante packets will be tagged with a DSCP value, and the switch will decide which queue to put that in. Now, if you've set up the switch the way we suggest, a value of 56 will be given the highest priority. That's our clocking packets. Here comes another packet with a value of 59. In our case, that won't go to a higher priority queue. That would go to the best effort category. As each packet comes through, they are assigned to their specific queues. And of course, when the switch has the bandwidth, it will empty the queue's highest priority first. Here's an example of a screen in a managed switch where you set the priorities. One thing to notice is that most values are assigned to priority 1. When we think of our highest priority, we think of that as the highest, right? Well, on most network switches, the highest value is the highest priority. Q1 being the lowest value is the lowest priority. Now this particular switch had 4 queues. So over here, DSCP value 56 is in Q4, the highest priority. After that, we have media packets in queue number 3 and control data in queue number 2. Everything else is put into the best effort category, queue number 1. So, when do we want to use quality of service? Well, there's 3 pretty good indicators. First, if Dante is on a converged network, that means the network has things other than Dante on it. That would be a good time to consider quality of service. Quality of service works by prioritizing some traffic, which inherently means you are deprioritizing something else. So perhaps you say, I want to prioritize my Dante traffic, but my email and my web browsing, that can take a back seat. Another good time to consider quality of service is when traffic ports approach saturation, say 70% or something like that. Even if your network only has Dante on it, as your network approaches saturation, you can still get benefits by elevating your clocking packets over your media packets. If you have Dante devices with 100 megabit ports on them, that's another good time to turn on quality of service. As we said in the level 1 class, 1 gigabit devices will typically have a better clocking resolution than 100 megabit devices. But turning on quality of service is a great way to close that gap. Finally, it's worth mentioning that when you set up quality of service, some switches will offer modes. We want to use strict priority. Some switches will offer other options, like round robin that creates a weighted average for different data classes, but we don't want that. We always want the highest priority queue to be served first. Now, as an example where quality of service can help, let's look at a stadium project. Now, these projects always take years to come to fruition. So if this stadium opened in 2008, it was designed around 2004, clearly in the heyday of a system like CobraNet. Now, by the time they opened in 2008, it didn't take the engineers long to realize, I wish this could have been a Dante system. In an effort to help, the manufacturers pointed out that the audio devices themselves didn't have CobraNet built in. It was just an option card that was installed. The stadium already had Cat6 cable pulled everywhere, so realistically, all they needed to do was swap out the option cards. And just like that, they've got themselves a Dante system. By 2014, the stadium fully converted to Dante. When they did that, they also replaced some network switches in the main equipment closets, because of course, CobraNet was a 100 megabit solution, but Dante could give you more capacity with gigabit. Still, they ran into some closets where they said, we only have a few Dante devices here, and we already have a switch handling, say, TV distribution throughout the stadium. Do you mind if we just let the Dante devices piggyback on that? The designers agreed, and quality of service was one of the tools used to keep Dante and the TV distribution working together on the same network. Now, we were talking about this installation at an event for consultants, and one of them came up to us afterwards and said, I really enjoyed seeing that up there. I worked on that stadium. He said, you didn't quite have it right, though. Certainly, Dante was on the same network as the television distribution, but also on that network was concessions, the gift shop, ticket sales, the front office, security cameras, guest Wi-Fi. Everything was working together on one converged network. These systems didn't have their own networks as isolated islands in the building. And of course, completely converged like that, it's been working great ever since. So, in summary, quality of service is a protocol that helps us prioritize some traffic on the network over others. Dante uses 3 queues. Optimally, the switch would support at least 4 of them, so you can have a best effort category for all other traffic to fall into. Finally, when engaging quality of service, make sure your switch is set for strict priority, not a round robin or other weighted performance modes.